We're good? Okay. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for being there. I want to thank particularly the speakers for being here today. They all are at the heart of water governance, water policy making in different ways, in different roles. And today is actually a really big day for water policy in the European Union. Right now, there is a vote at the European Parliament. They're voting the water restoration, nature restoration law, where Sergiy has been very, very active. And I'm impressed that he's here because he's following the vote online as we speak. Claudia Lazábal, who's the head of the water unit, was scheduled to be here, is also at the European Parliament to have a discussion on water crisis in water district crisis and water trees as well about it. Today we have a scene setting session. This is the opening session of the program today of this next water governance synthesis workshop. The subtitle in the program was Charting Horizons, Addressing Future Challenges and Connecting Research with Community and Practice. So not an ambitious goal at all. The scene setting session, the idea was to identify key challenges and innovations at the heart of water governance and politics, featuring diverse voices within the EU as well as internationally. We divided the sessions in two parts. Well, I should start by saying the two sessions have been coordinated by Valin, who's one of the ESRs of the program, and myself. And we divided the sessions in two parts. The first session, taking advantage of the fact that we are in Brussels, is looking at these challenges from the perspective of the EU, the European Union. And the second one will look at it from a more international perspective with the focus on the sustainable development. So in the first part, we have really an outstanding panel, and I want to thank all three of them for taking their time for being here today. And each of the participants looks at the different parts of the policymaking cycle. So we have the policymakers, we have science policy interface, and we have civil society. So from the perspective of the policymakers, so the European Commission, we have Marianthi Podimata, who has very kindly agreed to be here today with 2 days notice. So thank you for taking the time. She's from the Sustainable Freshwater Management Unit of DG Environment of the European Commission. And for those connecting, we have people from connecting, so I'm not going to assume that everybody knows how the EU works. So for those connecting from outside the EU who might not know, the European Commission is the executive body of the EU. So they propose legislation, they implement policies, they make sure that we are in line, that we comply with the EU directives. Connecting from Ispra, Italy, we have Dr. Karin Aschberger. Nice to meet you, Karin, online. She's the Deputy Head of Ocean and Water Unit in the Directorate of Sustainable Resources from the JRC. And for those that don't know, outside the EU, the JRC is actually at the policy science interface. They work, their mission of JRC is to provide independent, evidence-based science and knowledge supporting EU policies. And Karin will tell us, she's been working primarily on that interface and has thought and researched a lot about that, and will tell us about it. And then also the third participant is Sergiy Moroz. He's policy manager for water and biodiversity at the European Environmental Bureau. The EEB is Europe's largest civil society organization. They have about 180 member organizations from over 40 countries. And they advocate and lobby on water issues, make sure that they're environmental issues in the EU, making sure that it's sustainable, equitable, fair, and democratic. And that's why I'm saying that it's really, I appreciate that he's here today because I'm sure he would be following the votes more closely if you were in this office this morning. So without further ado, I pass the word to Nina, who will moderate the session.
Thank you very much for being here. We will start with some brief presentations of 20 minutes with tiny little time for technical questions after the end of the presentations, but we will keep the debate and Q&A for the end. We'll have 30 minutes for that. So I will also give you a notice 5 minutes before your time is up, and please, the floor is yours. Thank you. That's super. Yes.
Good morning on my side. My name is Marianthi. I work on the European issue, as said earlier. Actually, part of the team in DG Environment. I work in the unit of sustainable freshwater management, C1. And can you go to the next slide? And can you speak a bit louder? Yes, I'll try. Sorry. I didn't eat that breakfast. Sorry for that. Okay. And as I said, I work for the C1, Sustainable Freshwater Management, whose mission is the implementation of the European water policy. And I'm very happy today. Somehow I'm replacing Claudia because it needs to go to Brussels. She is already there. These plenary sessions about water crisis, but I'm happy to be with you and discuss about water. Next slide, please. Which is the key element of life. We all know that, and does not respect borders, administrative borders, geographical borders, national borders, and to discuss also about governance, which by default is water governance is a set of all these complex notion, complex idea, and in which by default we have borders between the management authorities that try to implement the water policy of the nation. Let's go the next slide. Here you can see the European water legislation, several directives and water-related directives. In the center of all of them, it's the Water Framework Directive, which sets the framework and sets the framework for the implementation of water policy inside Europe. As you can see, I hope that you can hear me. Is there any problem? If you go to the next slide, you can see that I highlighted here that the main management unit, as defined from the third article of the directive, is the river basin district. This is the main management unit for the management of the river basins around Europe. And the directive sets as a prerequisite to have competent authorities with specific roles and a clear orientation. And both in national and international level. The Water Framework Directive, which was established in 2000, almost 23 years ago, it's very important. Also, it is very important the international character, the transboundary management of water courses. And here you can see in that screen all the river basin districts around Europe. You see small countries like Greece with many river basin districts, big countries like France with 6, Greece has 14, and France has 6, Netherlands has 4. And the interesting about that is that 60% of those are international. 60% of the European territory is under, there are international agreements for these 6% of the European. And I could say that the only country, we have only 2 countries actually that do not have international agreements in the concept of water policy, which is Cyprus and Malta, the isolated, let's say, islands. And I would like to highlight this slide also, apart from the framework that the WFT sets for the integrated policy management of water policy. We try to set adequate territorial approach to have clear identification of responsibilities, fair and open open coordination and cooperation among the competent authorities, and of course the proper funding allocation and human resources allocation in this whole context. Next slide, please. You all know that we have several administrational arrangements throughout Europe. Indeed, we have a huge multiplicity of authorities involved. The truth is that the majority of the member states has more than one competent authorities for the implementation of the Water Framework Directive in different tiers, institutional tiers, not only in the national level, but also in the regional and municipal level. For example, in Germany, with the federal context of the whole country, we have a lot of agencies that are competent for the implementation of the WFT. In Italy, and if I'm not wrong, in Bulgaria, we have specific competent authorities that were founded for the management of specific river basin districts. We have some independent, regions in Italy. And we have many, the role also for many municipalities, also very energetic in Sweden. And we also have the example also in the Netherlands with the water boards. The key concept is that the stronger the governance inside the river basin, and of course, the more developed is the strategic document, which is the river-based management plan, the better the results for the implementation of the WFT, the Water Framework Directives, and the aim, of course, is to achieve the water objectives and the non-deterioration principles, and the key objective is the achievement of the good status or the good potential for the water bodies. All the member states should ensure that all the requirements of the directives must be coordinated in such a way via their water governance schemes, such a way in order the environmental objectives to be achieved at the level of the river basin. For this, it's not easy. That's why we're here and we discuss, and the academic literature in Google and scholar see many articles about water governance, and you see this context of multiplicity. And a very good example is the Rhine example. It's a big river. It transpasses many countries, just national, just boundary river. Switzerland, Germany, France, Netherlands, many others. And we have actually, Rhine, we have a committee which is responsible for the management of the Rhine. And apart from this, we have also bilateral agreements between some countries, for example, between France and Germany. We have also another committee which is responsible for the navigation of the Rhine, and another also committee which covers the scientific part. All these three committees have to, between us, to cooperate and collaborate for the best outcome. And the Rhine example is used in academia as a very good example of good water governance. About the second river-based management plans, which, as I said previously, are the strategy documents that the nations, the countries have to adopt the national legal system and to report to the Commission. Are those that are, among others, set some principles for the water governance. And we have seen from the previous management, when we made the evaluation of the second river management plans, that it did, compared to the first water cycle, which was during the period 2015-2021, we see that indeed the coordination among the competent authorities has been become more strong. Of course, there is always room for further improvement. And we also saw that there was more progress in the second cycle, water cycle, in the context of international arena. We found that most of the countries have ensured public consultation through the design process of the river-based management plans. And this public consultation tried for supporting and enhancing the stakeholder engagement, which is a prerequisite for a robust implementation of the directive. And of course, the participatory multi-level coordination among the competent authorities with, and here is how, the question on how, with the proper capacity for implementation. Of course, the Commission tries to assist, guide on this part. For example, and set here a very interesting tool that many water authorities make use of it, the TAIEX EIR peer-to-peer tool, in which it is dedicated for environmental authorities across the member states, which can organize workshop events, peer-to-peer reviews, and exchange best practices, or receive support for other more advanced countries. I want also to highlight the monitoring. The proper implementation of the WFD is based on proof evidence. Monitoring is important. And of course, we need to review the existing situation and to see if there is any need for any feedback, and in order to step forward and to collaborate not only with the clear water area sectors, but also with other water-related sectors, industry, agriculture, food industry, etc. What about now for the third river-based management plans? Now we are 5 minutes? Oh, I have to be high. Oh my God. Okay, the WFD brought this governing innovation about the 6-year water cycle. Now we are running this cycle, but we have seen that almost half of the member states have not managed, for various reasons, have not managed to adopt yet to report to the Commission the river-based management plans. And this is quite important. The deadline was in December for the adoption, December of 2021. The date for the report was in March of 2022. We were around now in the summer 2023. And the deadline is 2027. But you are aware of it. You are already aware of it. So let's run a little bit and discuss about the challenges. So we don't have only the delays in the adoption of the river-based management plan, but we have all these, the factor of this multiplicity of involved authorities, which is also a pros, but also a cons. And we have also to combine also sources of smart funding, smart financing, and to try to harmonize the way that the competent water authorities work together, especially on transboundary water bodies. I have seen, you can easily check if you go to WISE, you can see neighboring countries that have a common water body, and you can see the right corner is red, the green corner is green, and you see that there is problem monitoring, or not actually, but there's a problem in the standards of characterization of the river course, and we have to harmonize those standards. And we need more technical progress, and that's why on that we have started already in the calibration process. Stakeholders need to be involved, and the scientific knowledge must be translated to the practitioners and the decision makers. Let's go faster and discuss about innovations. So now, which is the more interesting part, I have to respect the time. Now we have this digital transformation, which is a tool for the implementation of the WFT. It can reduce the administrative burden. We have all these approach by this citizen engagement with smart applications, smartphone application. We can send, if they see an offense, they can send to the enforcement authority, which is for enforcement. And we have now also the simplification of the reporting processes. Via the Inspire, now there is a revision of the Inspire. We try to make it more simpler and more lighter. And of course, we have the help of satellite data and remote sensing. All of these innovations have great potential for proper implementation. Next slide. Of course, the role of the science is really important. I see that artificial intelligence, big data mining is high on the academic, is hot issues, I can say, in academic literature. A robust science, of course, will allow for a better decision making. And of course, my colleague from GRC will inform you more about this, but I would like to say that we had this other disaster summer with the heat wave on the road. You are aware of that. Our scientists in GRC made a very nice report with some explanation of the problem, and they used also satellite info, and they provided some explanation, still to be confirmed, about this disaster. And yesterday I heard that, again, the Polish press is talking about dead species, the other, which is really alarming. Oh, not again. In this technical report, we have also an analysis about other river basins with similar characteristics that might be at risk in the near future. Let's go and discuss a little bit about Green Deal, which is our growth strategy. And here you can see all these actions plans and strategies throughout the European Green Deal, in which you may understand the water is all around. Next slide, please. And we want now, with the modernization of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, we made some proposals. In 2022 was really busy in terms of legislative proposals, and we want also with the proposal for the industrial, the revision of the Industrial Emission Directive, we focus to improve, amongst other issues, the water circularity, and also with the revision of the water subsidy, we want to fight pollution in a more dynamic way. And with the nature restoration law we proposed last summer, we want to keep the status of the water courses in order to meet the services in which we rely on. Next slide, please. And let's discuss about the future. I see that water scarcity, water resilience, droughts, floods are very high in the political agenda, mainly after the United Nations conference, March, but also because we suffer from this extreme. It's not now an extreme event. It's part of our everyday life. We now live, we say, the more extreme drought of the last 500 years in Europe. So I think that the future of water governance will be on this area with more water circularity and the water energy nexus. Of course, we have the water reuse regulation. In 10 days, all the member states will adopt this regulation and start to implement, actually. And we have all this digital transformation. I see that since we are addressing this conference is where in our audience we have many water researchers. I see that many vacancies posts are on the certification, on water governance and data mining, on satellite analysis of remote sensing technologies. And I think that this area is, and if we can see, we remember 30 years ago, there were no agencies about climate, responsible for climate. Now you see, there are many ministries responsible for climate change. So we see a change also, and this reflects also water governance. Next slide, which is also my concluding slide. I can say that the European Commission keeps high the ambition. Our European Green Deal is our growth strategy, offers the vision to implement the water legislation, and the water governance for me is the vehicle to address all these water challenges, because we all are dependent on water resources, and we all want adequate quantities of water of good quality. Thank you very much. We have to work together and stay connected and water connected to succeed. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before we sit down, is there any technical question or clarification we should address now, or do we keep the questions for the debate and talk more about the future of the Waterfront Directive?
Yes.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And you mentioned the Rhine as an example. Thank you so much for the presentation. You mentioned the Rhine, which I believe the headquarters are in Switzerland. And Switzerland kind of likes the water tower of Europe. And I'm wondering, with all these international basins having their headwaters in a non-EU state, what are some of the challenges of coordinating that with non-state members?
Yes, about the WDirect also has provisions about this coordination, not only among the member states, but also with non-EU members. The countries in the border, like Lithuania, have also tried for agreements and bilateral negotiations for Lithuania. Okay, now with the water crisis, there is a lot of discussion about Ukraine and the water. We will see how that the Commission looks at that. But you mentioned also the United States, huh? United States. You also mentioned the United States.
No. I'm worried. I'm curious about non-member states in these transboundary river systems. So are they? I assume they're not signatories to these river basin management plans underneath the EU. So yes. How do you manage these transboundary systems with non-EU members?
No, usually there are bilateral agreements. For example, I know it was 1 year ago an agreement between North Macedonia, Greece. The Commission was the moderator. How? North Macedonia is not a European member. But the Commission also tries to assist also these bilateral agreements between the members of the Union and the non-Union members. Hope I replied or no, please. In practice, I don't know exactly. I know that in Kenya, there is also an agreement between Belarus and Russia and Kenya, which is not well advanced as other, but still there are negotiations in progress about this issue. That's my example. But for North Macedonia, we had also the Commission who participated in the negotiations, And it's also part of, signed also this agreement. Dorian Lake, the Freshwater Lake, you are aware. Among the signers, there is not only the signature between Albania, Greece, and North Macedonia, but there is also the Commission. The external office was responsible for this agreement. The Commission.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We're gonna try to keep track of time and move to the next one. But if you have more questions, we will have them at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. So Karin, the floor is yours for your presentation. You will have 20 minutes, and we will try to pass a sign in front of your screen for the 5 minutes remaining.
Okay, hello. Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the possibility to present our view, or I would rather say our contribution. I will now share my screen. I hope it works. No. Which one do you see? No, it's sharing. Why is it there? I don't know.
Karin, if you can speak loud, then we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I don't know why I can't see this.
Can I just take one sentence for this question? We've got 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yes,
Are you having?
and Switzerland is also part of the committee.
Can you share the screen and maybe
Forgot to say
okay,
that
guys,
okay.
before it was fine.
Now I have it, sorry.
Yeah.
It should work now.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, you can see the key challenges.
Yes.
Yes, okay, sorry. Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me. It was very nice from Marianthi to set the scene more or less. We're working closely together with DG Environment. Instead of the view, I put rather the contribution because we are the Joint Research Center, and I will explain you what we do. It was already briefly explained by Katarina in the introduction. So we are the Joint Research Center is a Directorate General within the Commission, and our topic or our the research agenda has now gone to Margarete Vestager, the Vice President. Before we were reporting to Maria Gabriel, but she changed job. We are we have 11 directorates, of which 9 are scientific ones. I will not go into detail with this. In the introduction, it was already said, I come from the Directorate for Sustainable Resources. And just to briefly say that the purpose of the Research Center is to provide independent evidence-based knowledge and science supporting the EU policies to positively impact the society. And this was also mentioned already by Marianthi, that we provided, for example, the order report, but we are collaborating in many more other things where we have administrative arrangements, and I will also mention a few of them. We should anticipate, and this is our main role also, to see what is coming up on the horizon, to know, to be prepared, and also to help our partner DGs to be prepared for upcoming challenges and policy demands, to integrate and also to have an impact by our collaboration. We have, beside the headquarters in Brussels, we have 5 sites spread over Europe. I come from Italy, in Ispra, at the Lake Maggiore, north of Milan, and this is also the reason why I can't be with you. It's a long travel, and we are also greening the Commission, so we are saving missions, going on missions, and unfortunately for this short talk, I couldn't come today, but I hope it's also fine that I'm connected remotely. The other places are in Petten in the Netherlands, in Heerlen in Belgium, in Karlsruhe, and in Seville. So we are in a looming disaster. We are facing a triple crisis: the climate change, the pollution, and the biodiversity. And the water plays a main role in this because it is related. Okay, now I see the audience. That's very nice. And the water is, of course, is a connector, is related to all of this, and is also the element that is suffering most of this. And this is a precious resource under immense pressure. So there is no life without water, no water, no life. There's also no blue, no green without the blue. So we need the water also to have the Green Deal. And in our unit, I come from the Ocean and Water Unit. We are dealing with many aspects of the water, with the freshwater, with the coastal and the marines, who we are mainly supporting the EU policies underpinning the freshwater and marine governance, and with our research, our multidisciplinary research, with our modeling approaches, and in very different areas to support the Commission. And oops. And it was already mentioned, most of this was already mentioned by Marianthi. So these are the main directives and regulations that we are supporting. Above all, the 2 framework directives, the Marine Strategy Framework and Water Framework Directive, and then particularly the drinking water, the bathing water, the Urban Wastewater Directive, the we are contributing to the integrated nutrient management by supporting the nitrates directive. And we have also been in use, and we'll mention this later on in the water reuse regulation. We also, this is maybe, it's also connected to the topic of the water governance today, the common fishery policy, because you need clean water to have also fish and to secure food, the food supply, as we saw with the example of the Oder River. And we are contributing also to Copernicus with the ocean observation, and we are contributing to the sustainable blue economy. And in the middle, you see the all these overarching ambitions and action plans that are contributing mainly to the European Green Deal, but also to the stronger Europe in the world. The Zero Pollution Action Plan, Farm to Fork, Nature Protection and Restoration, Climate Change, Health, Biodiversity Strategy. And it's all interlinked, and water plays a main role in all these to ensure the success of these to be implemented. So what are exactly our roles? We are supporting the EU water legislation, which is key for achieving the Green Deal and these ambitions, as I just mentioned, zero pollution water, farm to fork biodiversity strategy. And we are focusing on the environmental objectives of the existing and the new legislation. So in the development of new legislation, we are involved from the beginning, also in the revision of them. We focus on the ecological status, on the chemical status, nutrient standards, on the free-flowing rivers, microbiological parameters, on the reuse of waters. And just to give the major examples, what we do is we provide guidance documents, we have scientific publications, and we also provide input to commission evaluations and new legal proposals. And we have a close collaboration, and our main partner is DG Environment, but this is not exclusive. We are also collaborating with DG Mare when it comes to the oceans, with DEFIS when it comes to the ocean observation, with INPA in the global context. We are having also a lot of projects related to river basin management in Africa, for example. And also Santé, when it comes, for example, the connection to the farm to fork, and agri, of course, is also not listed here. And we also are collaborating with agencies like the European Environmental Agencies are the main partner, but then some others are the Chemicals Agency, the Food Agency, and some more. We also host 3 labs in our unit. Molecular ecotoxicology and microbiology laboratory. One topic here is antimicrobial resistance. We have the water lab, which is beside the water quality, also having a big part of work now in the wastewater analysis, which was very useful also in the pandemic and in tracing the spread of the coronavirus. And we have a marine optical laboratory where we also observe the oceans and also freshwater from the satellite. So when it comes to water governance or water availability and quality, I will give you now a few examples of our work. Here we're very strong in the modeling. To model the waterability under different climate changes, which is very important because the climate change has an impact on the water resources. And then we can model or give some different scenarios on the effects of the policy measures on the, for example, on the nutrient pollution in freshwater and to the sea, or in general on the water availability, or I have some more examples also on the water depletion. Under different scenarios. We have contributed here to the Zero Pollution Outlook 2022. There was, for example, this example on the nutrient pollution, and we will have more examples and contribute to the Zero Pollution Outlook 2024. So it is the task of the GRC to provide this outlook. We prepare them together with the EEA, who is doing the monitoring, the zero pollution monitoring and an outlook. And it also helps to support the revision of EU water legislation. We also know, and this was mentioned by Marianthi, we have to look at the water in a context, in an integrated water resource management context. And in the past, we were looking at the different sectors in a separate approach, where we continuously recognize that we have to look at them in a combined view, and also put this together. And we are working in the so-called water, energy, food ecosystem approach, or nexus, where we look at all these sectors that have demands for the water and which are also in competition to each other, look at them together. So which is the energy, the agriculture, the ecosystem, the climate, in this water nexus. And we produced a report in 2019 where we described this for the first time, but it has become a mode of working and thinking in the GRC. So here is one example where we have combined, or my colleagues have combined, the different models. So we have this list flat, which is an in-house model to model water resources. They have combined this with an agricultural model, which is the EPIC model, a crop growth model. And I will show you a little bit later which forecasts we can do, or how we can more or less play with the data, with these models to project different scenarios. Here I give you an example of looking at the water resources which are under stress. And for this, we use the water exploitation index. This is our preferred index for the analysis to show water scarcity. And it shows the available water, how it is consumed without returning to the water system. On the left side, you see the present day climate. And as simulated with the list flat model, we can notice that even for the current climate, there are river basins that are considered to be under water stress. So you see the darker it is here around the Mediterranean. Mostly the darker it is, the more the river or the water basins are under stress. And on the right-hand side, you can see it for the different countries. And we can see that two, particularly Malta and Cyprus, are under severe water stress. And two more, Greece and Spain, are under water stress. And we'll see this also in the following slides, that it is mainly the Mediterranean area, also because of the climate, the warmer climate, that they are under water stress. I see that it should be it's probably very hot in your room, because I see ventilating. So probably you will also have a demand for water, for drinking water soon. But it also shows that the climate is changing, and also you in the more northern country are suffering from the hot climate. Here, and this next slide, I show what we can do with the water depletion models. So on the left side, you see for the irrigation, if all the water for which uses the groundwater is used, and this is mainly for the where it is used for irrigation. Let's say it like this. And here we are again in the Mediterranean area. Whereas if we look at other uses, we see that this is very well matching with the metropolitan areas, like here for Istanbul. Here we have northern Egypt, but also related that here, these are the countries where there is also a hotter climate and a higher demand, but we also have mega cities there. But we also have some areas here in Europe where there is a slightly higher demand for this. But it's nice to have these models to see where these, what are the reasons for the depletion for the groundwater. And here with these graphs, I want to show if there is deficit irrigation. So if we are saving the groundwater for other purposes, or simply to keep it, not to exploit it to a maximum. And this is a result of this combined model with the EPIC model, what is the yield loss with the deficit irrigation. And you can see also here again, when we go towards the green, which is more severe than the yellow one, that the higher yield loss is in the okay, thank you, I see 5 minutes, in the Mediterranean area. Whereas if the full irrigation is taking place, there is a higher depletion. The agriculture, as shown in these examples, is one of the highest consumers of the water, but also the energy cooling requires a lot. That's why we are also investigating into measures for water saving. And there are different possibilities: increased irrigation efficiency, which also reduces the demand of water. And there are others which are simply using different type of water by reusing wastewater, reducing the leakage, and this is a big problem in Italy, and the desalination, which where we can learn from our partners in the more Mediterranean area, in Israel, for example. We have contributed to the water reuse regulation, and we have also learned that even though treated urban wastewater has already been is already used to a big demand, the potential is to be 6 times more. And we have supported the implementation of the water reuse regulation, which will be applied from next week on, by giving advice on the minimum requirements on water quality. We provided guidelines, we organized technical workshops on the reuse, and we participated to drafting the regulation and technical parts of in the implementing act documents. Here are a few more examples of our technical reports where we contribute. The one in the middle is also to look at the hydroeconomic assessment of photovoltaic, because this is also one possibility to provide the energy for the desalination, because desalination has a high energy demand. What we've also learned is that we need to work at different levels, from the top down also to the bottom up, and we are contributing to the community of practices within the PRIMA and the WEFE for the Mediterranean, where we also contribute with our knowledge to build up these communities of practice. And this is all over the Mediterranean area, where we can learn from each other, particularly those that have been under stress already for longer time than we are in Middle and the Northern Europe. And then to the desalination, I just want to show you another type of work that we're doing at the GRC. We have one group working on the EU economy, and we publish yearly the Blue Economy report, and have also this observatory where I provide the link here. I guess the slides will be shared with you, where you can have a look where we are. There are dashboards where you can also get figures about the different sectors that are contributing to the blue economy. And here one example is the desalination. I want to wrap up. So what are the challenges for the water management? We know that everything is interconnected: the climate, biodiversity, and the pollution crisis. The diagnosis is sometimes clear, but where we have to invest more also is to identify the therapies. It is now urgent to make help make things happen. We have been focusing mainly on the top-down approach, on the EU adopting common goals and strategies, setting harmonized rules, distributing funds, that was mentioned by Marianthi, also checking that they are well spent. But we also, I think, continuously have to investigate more into the bottom-up approaches, into local communities, because these are the ones that implement it. If they don't implement, it's nice to have all these plans and all these models, but it really needs to be directly implemented, and people have to see the direct benefit of it. And where we can contribute, we at the GRC, we support the EU strategic thinking and the foresight. As I said, we can give some examples for the forecasting with our models. What if the quantitative analysis of the water quality and the quantity using the EU scale modeling, but we also go into the international dimension, the impacts of climate and socioeconomic changes, the technical and economic appraisal of management options, thinking beyond the disciplinary and organizational silos within the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus, and the technical support to the definition and implementation of the EU legislation, and then analysis and dissemination of good practices also at the local level. And with this, I would like to thank you, and please don't hesitate to come back to me. We have many researchers behind us who provide these models, who write these reports, and who interact also with our stakeholders and partners in the DGs. And we're happy to engage with you and to exchange with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Karin. I'll open the floor to see if there's any burning questions. Otherwise, we can already go to Sergiy and sorry. I'll read it out loud. For agricultural measures on water efficiency, this can often mean that more should be reduced with less water, but no absolute reduction of water use takes place. Are there more recent ambitions or measures that focus on actual water saving, also to ensure water availability for ecosystems?
Sorry, I did not understand all of it very well.
I think, Karin, what she's primarily is focusing, saying that the proposals that you're thinking about, which is kind of increasing efficiency and such, that there is a lot of work that you have done at GRC too that shows with the Jevons paradox effect that actually it does not translate into overall savings. So if there are other ways that you're looking at dealing with this problem beyond just increasing efficiency.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, of course, we are looking also at the ecosystems and to save the water for the ecosystems, that it's not depleted from or exploited from all or taken away from the rivers, because we know it needs to be in a balance. I just highlighted a few examples where we show this, and of course the agriculture and energy are the most consumers. But if we can save in these areas, we can save a lot of water that is also available. And this is all, the ecosystem is part of this WEFE. Yeah, maybe I didn't show enough of this.
Yes, I would like also to add on this. Thank you also for the question. Very interesting. I just want to disseminate with you my experience when we have all these negotiations with member states for the CAP plans on the common agriculture policy. If you don't know, the member states provided their CAP plans to the Commission. DG Agri was the competent authority, but DGOM also provided its comments throughout the whole procedure and throughout the negotiations. And I can say a typical example that I think that fits to the question. We had some measures that about related to water efficiency in relation to agriculture. The member states were asking for funding in order to change their irrigation systems. And we noticed that many of them asked for more funding about changing just the pipes in the drops. You know, we have the drop irrigation. Do you know about drop irrigation? Okay. And the pipes that, the rubber pipes, usually need replacement. Okay, but we have seen that even though that it was easy for member states to follow this path, it's more industry friendly and more easy for the farmers to apply for that because they have to renew their pipes. But the expected outcome in terms of water efficiency, it's so limited. So we see that we can say that we have many applications for changes water pipes to make from previous older pipes to make them new, which will become more effective, but the outcome will be 5%. And we tried to push more during the negotiation for more robust and for more intensive schemes that will expand this percentage of water efficiency. For example, we have still some countries that have open irrigation channels in order to irrigate, to use them for irrigation. And we try to push them and to make them to try for more funding by using closed channels or other more efficient irrigation schemes. And in that way, we have more effect on the ground. That's an example in which we have the same water demand, but with better planning, we might receive better effectiveness in terms of water use. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we should go to you, Sergiy. First of all, how is the vote going?
No, it's the worst has been averted. So the vote was going to be extremely tight. So that's also why I wanted to compliment the organizers for bringing you to Brussels and putting EU policy discussions on the agenda, because legislation does matter, politics does matter, elections do matter. So please vote in the upcoming elections. Please tell our politicians we need a livable planet, because what's been happening around the nature restoration law has been appalling. Our right-wing and center-right parties have really been doing Trump on us, completely undermining science, completely undermining, they've just rejected an amendment to have more trees in the cities because it will harm farmers. How? I don't know. But, in the current heat, obviously urban greening is a good thing. So why having a problem with having legal targets to have more urban greening by 2030? So, they've very much identified, so, we are 1 year before the elections. So, a lot of the debate is not so much about the content, it's about positioning and politicking. So EPP, the largest party in the European Parliament, wants to be the defenders of the farmers, but they're not really having the real farmers' interests at heart. They just want their votes in a year's time. So they've identified some key pieces of European Green Deal, like nature restoration or sustainable use of pesticides, regulation as key political targets to kill. And that failed. So the amendment to reject the Commission proposal tightly was rejected, 44-44 in the Environment Committee. Now they're going through, but that also meant there is no majority for the compromise amendments that have been hardly considered. So they're now going by etc. But at least the nature restoration law still has still some light. So some remnants of it will be put to the legal vote. And if Swedish presidency doesn't succeed of killing NRL in the council, despite the Prime Minister now intervening and asking for council debates to be postponed because they want to vote against and they can't do it as a Swedish presidency. So, I just kind of wanted to say that, politics is never boring, but elections do matter. Politicians need to feel the pressure that there are voters that really want them to vote for things like biodiversity, nature restoration, climate action, etc. Legislation can help us there. We tried nature restoration through voluntary measures. It didn't work. we need legally binding targets, and that we are talking about governance. So when we are talking about the nature restoration law, some of the lessons from the Water Framework Directive, and I'll focus very much on the implementation of the Water Framework Directive in a minute. Just one thing I wanted to say, that in terms of better governance, we are learning from things that worked or didn't work. So for example, getting the nature restoration law, which is built on some of the key elements in the WFD planning process, a regular revision. Nobody will be able, so for example, in the nature restoration law, nobody went for defining what a good status is, because after the nightmare of the Water Framework Directive and intercalibration exercises, nobody's ever going to go there. So it's not defining what good status is. In some cases, member states will need to define their own level of achievement, or we are using the things that are already defined in the Birds and Habitats Directive, etc. So there are some elements in the new legislation and in some of the governance approaches that we are improving, not necessarily kind of even in theory, because in theory it would have been ideal to do that, but from practical terms, what works and what doesn't work. For example, the Commission needs to have the powers to assess member state plans and not just make voluntary recommendations, which is what we currently have, but really make sure that some of those recommendations are really taken seriously. If we are not reaching the overarching EU objectives that we've agreed, there is a corrective action that needs to be taken. So overall, so the EU legislation and some of the governance approaches are also moving. We are learning from what works, what doesn't. But that's also where your research is also so crucial, because one of the key messages that there is one thing that I want you to take away today, WFD, Water Framework Directive, is still a very good piece of legislation. It's trying to resolve the right problems, etc. But its implementation is still very weak. So we are looking for innovations in governance. It's flexible enough to accommodate those innovations. Heard from Marianne and the other speakers as well. The data, the digitalization already can help us with that innovation. So the framework is flexible enough to allow for a lot of those innovations to happen. But that's where your research is also so fundamental, to get some of those ideas to really help us advance and reach the objectives of the directive. Because what the directive is telling us to do is absolutely right. It's something that doesn't mention the word climate change. It was adopted in the year 2000. Nowhere in the text it says climate change. It wasn't necessarily it was on the agenda at the time, but not so prominently to make it to the legal text. However, it's just one other pressure. You need to account for climate change when you're planning your measures, but just treat the framework in the WFD pressure response allows you to treat climate change as just an additional pressure that is also making other pressures worse. And so the objectives are there, we need to achieve them, and unfortunately we're not. So at the moment we are in the third river basin management cycle that will last until 2027. Under the directive, the action will not stop after the 2027, so the directive doesn't have a sunset clause. The management will continue. However, of course, the legislators, when they originally planned the directive, they saw that 3 cycles would be more than enough to reach the objectives of the directive. If anything, the idea was to achieve everything by 2015, so it was just remains until 2021. 2027. So the action will continue. However, it's true there will be less mechanisms, for example, to apply exemptions. There will be limited opportunities to apply the exemptions. But the action after 2027 will continue. And our call goes to the EU institutions, including member states, that are implementing the directive to really act with the emergency that the science is telling us. The science is very clear. We are in code red for humanity. We have 10 years to really change and have the huge transformation that we need to achieve of food sector, agricultural sector, energy and transport sector to really be able to also achieve the objectives of the WFD good status everywhere. So that really act with that urgency and really, do not delay the action until beyond 2027. Really implement everything that is still possible to be implemented right now. It's true nature will need some time to recover, so some of the results we'll see later, but at least putting the measures in place can be before the 2027 deadline. And I think one of the key problems why we're not reaching the objectives of the directive and seeing such poor implementation, that the directive was almost ahead of its time. It was extremely innovative, and it was a systems directive. It really was talking about, so it really was departing away from our usual paradigm, how we dealt with problems. There was, nitrate pollution, right? Okay, let's have a nitrates directive. Let's just put measures that were mainly point source based. And, we've achieved some results there. Urban wastewater treatment directive now is also being updated, as you heard. But, there are still weaknesses with its implementation. There can be more. But overall, having such a simple approach was implementable, right? It's, you have a problem, you have a technology, you make sure that a lot of the cohesion money could be tapped into building those wastewater treatment plants, and the results are there, but it's only solving one particular problem. In water environment, there is a huge range of problems. We'll never be able to solve them one by one. And, we know we can do it as well. Those approaches dealing with point sources pollutions really show us that legislation works. We can do it. It's just that the scale of the problem is much bigger, and we cannot just solve one problem here and leave all the other ones outside. It's a complex ecosystem. That's also where I'm trying one in, one out. That's the Green Deal principle.
One out.
That's right.
One not achieved, one is out.
That's right. That's right. So basically, if you are failing on one of the indicators, you are failing on the whole class. And that is an important principle. Was criticized a lot during the fitness check. And a lot of the member states hate it because they're saying it's masking our progress. Look, with how our chemical water quality has improved a lot. How do I go to my minister and explain that we've spent millions, but the status is still red? My map is still red. And we have sympathy with that. It's true, but scientifically, again, from the governance perspective, that principle is really, really important because it shows us that, because otherwise we can miss other pressures and other problems. If one of the indicators is not good, we cannot claim that the health overall is good. It's like when we're having a cold, maybe we've, treated the running nose, but the cough is still there. So, we still need to continue getting us healthy because there are still symptoms that are there and we need to track them. And only when everything is okay, only then we can say, yes, it is healthy ecosystem that we've been trying to achieve. So when we come very quickly to the, so overall, directive is a systems directive, right? And that's also where your research is so important, because under the WFD, we cannot only talk about technical solutions. They are part of the solutions, but not only. With water management, we all care so much about water. We need social scientists, we need citizens on board, we need economists under the WFD. We're really not using the economic instruments. It's a really, really comprehensive piece of legislation that really needs a systems thinking. That also means why it's so difficult. You've heard an example about the common agricultural policy, and that's one of the biggest things that we still need to crack. We're still not able to crack that. how to achieve the coherence with other EU policies, what to do with the common agricultural policy. It's so difficult to reform, and a number of reforms have failed. There are better elements, but again, as you heard about the water efficiency plans and investments, its CAP is still not helping us solve water problems. And in many cases, it creates more problems because it still incentivizes intensive industrial scale agriculture with everything that it comes with pollution, with abstraction, with illegal over-abstraction. And that is also, you know, talking about the Jevons paradox and water efficiency measures. It's very true. That's exactly what we've seen in Spain as well, where a lot of the extension, a lot of those savings that have been made in improving irrigation techniques, that saving didn't return. You know, we embarked on the savings program in order to secure enough e-flows in the rivers. That saved water didn't go into the e-flows of the rivers. That saved water went into more irrigation, including unauthorized irrigation without permits. And you know what's happening now in Andalusia, with, again, politics matter. You have right-wing party in the regional government that is undermining the key agreements that have been reached, and you know there was progress being made to try to to legalize some of those abstractions and prevent the new ones. And at the moment, everything is the big question mark. And as Europe, you know, is definitely watching what's happening there, because you know we do care about Doñana. Doñana is a very, very unique place that doesn't only belong to Spain; it belongs to everybody. So it really, really is important that Spain, you know, gets that right. But that's one of the key. I'm saying simple, but one of the measures to really embark. Really make sure that those that abstract water have a permit. We will need to talk about how do we need to have a system to revise those permits. You know, a lot of those permits are based on paper water. With climate change, there is simply not enough water in the system according to those permits. You know, and some of them were given, you know, for 100 years. You know, we will need to find a way to making the permits flexible, that we can revise them, etc. But that's sort of the next step. The first step, what we can do is really make sure that water is abstracted legally. It's, again, I'm saying it's not a simple problem to solve, but if you have the political will, you can. That's the one that is relatively easy to put in place. We're also talking about the data. We have the satellite data to help us. We can identify, we know where that abstraction is happening illegally, etc. So well, that's, I think, that was one of the key things that is preventing us from implementing the WOD properly. We've really moved away from the system. You know, we need this kind of paradigm shift, system thinking, and that's something that hasn't been happening yet. You know, that's what we really would like member states, when they are implementing, and European Commission when they are enforcing and checking the implementation, to really push for that. We continue with the implementation journey. We really make sure that those plans are really the strategic documents that are not just you know, seen as a you know, as a kind of a bureaucracy exercise. They're really there as a development plans for the area based on the water reality, based on maintaining those planetary boundaries. On water, we are surpassing them. That, you know, when we are planning new hydropower, or when we are planning a new agricultural extension, they are based on river basin management plans, because as a first step, we need to make sure that our ecosystems do not collapsing. They can continue functioning. They can continue providing those vital services and benefits. And that's what the WD was trying to do. We looked at the draft river basin management plan, and I'm finishing, I think. We looked at the draft river basin management plans, that some of them have been delayed. So again, one thing that the Commission can do is to be stricter on enforcement. And when it comes to whether member states have submitted their plan or not, that's a yes or no question. And I know some of them are struggling. We had COVID in between while the plans were drafted. It's true, some member states were saying, how do you arrange public participation when we know public participation really works in workshops and face-to-face kind of discussions on the local level. So, it's true, we have some sympathy with that. It was difficult. However, some of them are really, some of those plans are so much delayed that now I think the only way to really push them is to stop the infringement procedures, because we understand some delay could be justified, but if you are not taking it seriously, then we have other remedies to bring in. And then in terms of other enforcement, really look at the content, because if we looked at we did look at the implementation, at the draft river basin management plans. You can find that. I'll send you the link to the report. So I have a couple of slides from there. But sort of as a kind of general message, at the moment, there are good plans. So WFD can work. We have 2 river basins, for example, based on the river basin management plan, where 2027 objectives will be reached. Unfortunately, they're just in one member state, in Finland. But there is, and we haven't looked at all of them, right? So they're also a proviso. It's not what I'm saying. It's not comprehensive, right? When Nuria kind of tried to explain the way we work as a sort of civil society, we obviously engage in pushing for new legislation, but we also try to track what's happening with implementation. But with implementation, it really is a role of the national or regional or local NGOs. So we couldn't look at all the draft river basin management plans, but we looked at 22 of them in different geographical region, and they kind of give us these kind of key messages there that it's possible to implement WFD. It can be done. It does take efforts also in terms of governance, because you need science on board, you need public participation, you need collaboration with the other administrations within your government. You need your kind of almost whole of government approach. But you always need a political will. And then if you have a political will, those barriers can be broken. And of course, one of the other issues that's been highlighted by the fitness check is funding, right? One of the key reasons why WFD is not implemented. You've designed beautiful measures, but you have no money to implement them. Again, if there is a political will, those measures come with agreed budgets, either from EU sources or from the national sources. It can be done, right? So that's my first message. My second message is, based on the assessment of the draft river basin management plans, we still have a very long way to go to meet the 2027 deadlines. Agricultural pollution is still a huge issue to crack. One element that WFD really brought out was the hydromorphology, because before WFD, we've always talked about chemical quality, chemical pollution, and it was really the analysis under the WFD that really highlighted, what? Our water environment is suffering so much by those modifications to flow and shape of water bodies, the dikes, dams, etc., that actually that pressure is why we are failing on good health. And maybe answering quickly to your question as well, kind of EU, non-EU. So that also was one of the key benefits of the WFD was transboundary collaboration. And Rhine, Switzerland, there is a commission. So, and we're talking governance, we're talking about the importance of institutions. So in the case of governance, river basins, there are river basin commissions. Switzerland is fully participating in those with Liechtenstein as well, exactly. So they are fully participating. So that's why WFD was so important. It sets the same concept of water management. Definitions, the same. Concept is the same. So approach is the same. So even countries that are not part of the EU and never dream of becoming part of the EU, like Switzerland, but they are still fully participating in the transboundary river basin management on the basis of the WFD concept. Norway, again, no chance of joining the EU. They are fully implementing WFD as part of their economic environmental area agreement. There are other agreements. Marianne was absolutely right. There are a lot of bilateral agreements, Spain and Portugal, or Bulgaria and Turkey. So there are a lot of bilateral water agreements, but there the importance is institutions. Well-funded, well-designed institutions, river basin commissions. Things can really happen. Danube, huge, most international river basin in the world. Ukraine, Moldova, but both Ukraine and Moldova want to be part of the EU. So it's also they're doing their homework for the future. They're already part of the implementation. Again, that was only possible because of the ICPDR, because of the institution. They've been fully participating. So WFD, by defining what integrated river basin management is, by setting those concepts, setting those definitions, and this stuff is taught at universities. You've been learning that as part of your river basin course, as part of your water management course, and I think that's something that is going to be making such a huge difference. Because we are all talking about the same things when we talk about good water management. So that will take away water from the sphere of engineers that were always just interested in, we have a water problem, increase the supply, let's just build a reservoir here and everybody will be happy, So water is too precious to be left to hard engineers only. As I said, it really involves all the interests and different sciences. So WFD was helpful in that it was breaking that, establishing similar definitions, establishing the concepts that the whole EU, no matter whether you're in Finland or whether you're in Spain, you understand each other when you are talking about water management, because they are the same concepts that have been brought forward by the EU legislation. So agricultural, pollution, hydromorphology, dealing with existing dams like hydropower and new dams. We are also obviously seeing a big movement for dam removal, and that's also a part of the nature restoration law, for example. There is a target, legally binding target there as a contribution to the EU biodiversity target to make 25,000 kilometers of rivers free flowing. I think my final point is really economics. WFD has a lot of elements to use economic instruments, both to do the analysis and assessment, and also as tools to reach the objectives. And that's where we also see we're still nowhere near where we need to be. There were some attempts of things like cost recovery. Again, so we know it can happen, it can work. There are examples, it's just not happening on the scale commensurable with the problem. So we're still very much focusing on water pricing and just getting us as water bill payers paying for it. And in the end, we're paying twice. We are paying in subsidies for agriculture that is polluting, then we are paying for water bills and treat that pollution. And it's relatively straightforward. You just increase the water price, and you don't necessarily then use the proper water pricing. And we can have a big debate about elasticity and everything, but there are ways that economic instruments from the WFD can be better applied. It will create a lot of opposition, etc. But in the end, it's if we do want to have water, if we want to have functioning ecosystems, that's we really will need to be taking some very unpopular decisions.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a hopeful conclusion, and we'll have very little time for questions because I don't want to take too much over the break. But please, if there's something on your mind, speak up, or I will repeat so that Karin can give us as well. Dubna? Yeah.
I hope you can hear me.
Yeah. Otherwise, I will repeat after. Yeah. You can hear her?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll try to project as much as I can.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Marianthi, Sergiy, and Karin. I think my question is mostly, but for all of you, but especially now because Sergiy, you pointed it out. You said something about we need a paradigm shift. And just to frame it a little bit, within NEWAVE, we have a working group on water governance paradigm. And I'm very curious I heard a little bit from you about what you think, what the current paradigm for you is, about like this direct tackling of technical problems and technical solutions. And I'm wondering what you would name this new shift of a paradigm. What kind of paradigm would you foresee would be important to shift towards? And just in case, if we think about this new paradigm, then what kind of blind spots might it have or tensions or clashes within the same paradigm? These are all questions you've been, dabbling in, so it'd be interesting to hear from the level of an EU perspective, what kind of paradigms are being called upon for the future of water governance? Thank you.
I think I'll give you just kind of a quick example of what and we see some of the elements of that already happening, but really using nature-based solutions, for example. So really working with nature approaches, and it can be across the board. I was talking about the hydromorphology, for example. One of the key hydromorphological practices is navigation, right? And you can do it by further kind of cutting, ensuring your depth. You can further cutting the banks. You can further dredging to get the required depth. The paradigm shift in those projects can be working with nature, and where you're really kind of adapting the ships to the river, not the river to the ships. When something that was been happening in Austria, for example, where they're really applying working nature concepts when they are planning navigation projects, or where together with improving the navigability, that also improving the kind of ecological sense. The same with the way we're dealing with flood risks. Really building on nature-based solutions when we are approaching flood risk. So really taking this philosophy of that we're maybe using is the wrong word, but really building, coping together with nature rather than against it in a way. The Netherlands program on room for the rivers, or the even better French concept of espace de liberté is really kind of the right thinking about kind of the river needs space, and that will also help us deal with floods, because we've heard from the GRC all the projections for climate change, and we see this every day. Extreme events are going to be happening more and more. So as a paradigm shift, really nature-based solution, if you're okay with that term, or working with nature approaches as a fundamental.
Abi?
Thank you all for the presentations. I have to say that I feel a bit uncomfortable with this approach of enforcing or pushing. Marianthi, I think you said that you're trying to push for this kind of policies, and I'm working in the southeast of Spain, where all this water depletion is pretty severe, is the epicenter of this. And what I see is that these kind of transformations that are occurring in the technologies and infrastructures, they are not achieving the expected results, as you're saying, but they're also disrupting community dynamics, social and rural context dynamics, and they're very harmful. Like, I think that we are assuming very quickly that all these traditional irrigation systems, they are losing water, wasting water. To what extent does this narrative help to achieve an ecological concept and all that? But I think that the problem is that we are only focusing on the technical solutions. Like we're addressing this kind of issue, like what you said, what to do. So avoid leakages, put the pipes and all that. And then we talk about economic measures, but what are the social measures that we're considering? Because when this disruption happens through the technology transformation, they're pushing the processes. They're not democratic. There's people interested in the subsidies, and there's many companies entering the decision on the local level. And that's how water depletion happens. And it's actually a dispossession. So my question is, how is it going to happen, that kind of political will? There are many political wills, and actually these agribusiness companies, they are financing the political parties. So what are the social measures are we considering? Are we really wanting or aiming to limit the power of these agribusiness companies? Because water savings is a social problem. It's not just agriculture.
I would say, very interesting question. And I would say, indeed, there is a lobby that supports policies. And we talked about political will. And that if we want to see solutions, we need first a political will. But I think that the last years, the citizen awareness have been augmented now, and the social factor is more strong. NGOs have, like EEB has also their own lobby, and they are also pushing a lot. The legislators and for the right direction, for the more beneficial direction in terms of environmental terms. In part of infringements, yes, the Commission tries to have to step up a little bit more the legal follow-up. For example, for the adoption, even since February, we have opened our enforcement tools like the letter of formal notice, and we are going for recent opinions because yet many member states have not yet reported. Yes, it's true, but I would say for Spain that I have seen from my experience that I have seen a lot of live projects that on the right context, because I suppose that Spain indeed faces a lot of problems in quantity and quality terms. And there is this citizenship engagements now with the smart applications when they see illegal abstraction, immediately they take the picture and they send it to the enforcement authorities. In relation about the social factor is really important. Remember the example of Luxembourg during the consultation phase. Last year raised the campaign for more water, for better use of water on the part of the citizens, for more recycling, not let for example, the campaign about the tap. When you brush your teeth, please don't leave the tap of water open. It's light, it's soft things, but that can make the difference. So I suppose that since the citizens, there is a lot of awareness of the citizens, and this comes education and environmental education that comes from schools. The social factor, we said, I see that now the students in our schools have mandatory lessons about environmental science. This was not in the past, and I see that the people are more aware about this environmental problem. So I remain optimistic, not pessimistic. And about the enforcement, I want also to say in relation to the abstractions, we have also this proposal about the new environmental crime directive, for which we have a new article, about the legal abstraction, which is important and shows the political will, the will of the Commission to keep high the ambitions about and to present all the water bodies in a good quantitative status. And in the past, we have only the condemnation of water bodies was considered as crime. And now also, if you abstract illegally, provoking significant problems in the water body, yes, this now is, we will see the legislator, but the Commission proposed that this should be also crime.
Thank you. We have to, oh, sorry, do you want to comment?
It's just very, because the point that you're making is absolutely fundamental. And again, WFD allows for that. There is nothing in the WFD that would be, preventing a kind of social, or would be kind of creating social problems. It sets obligations for member states, and then how member states are trying to organize that. And again, in Spain, there have been really, really excellent examples of public participation, of engaging of local communities, river contracts. So, it can, and this is in a way what WFD was encouraging, that we don't just look at water with kind of very narrow eyes and only focus on technical solutions. We look at water as a common public good, and we need to find joint solutions to it by using public participation. We had some really, really impressive workshops, but it takes time, it takes effort, it takes money, but it really delivers the results. There are workshops externally facilitated where the local community is involved, they know better, they can propose measures, and it happens along kind of the range of several evenings. And you see the photographs from the first evening where the farmers are completely, even the body language is like that. And then by the end, by common discussions of problems, common solutions, everybody's participating, is engaged. So, if anything, some of those opportunities have not been fully utilized. But you're also absolutely right. We need a huge transformation of our agricultural and food sector. The farmers are struggling, but they are also struggling because of wrong incentives there, or they are, nobody's against the irrigation. Irrigation has a role to play where irrigation is problematic, where it undermines the, how much water we leave in the ecosystem, so the ecosystem can continue functioning. So where we can find that balance, that's basically what the whole thing is about. Really finding the balance for having the ecosystem functioning, and then really seeing what you can do with the remaining water. But that also may mean it's ridiculous to be growing some of the crops that we are growing in Spain. So, and that's what I mean by some of the difficult decisions. But the transformation of the food and agriculture sector is absolutely crucial if we are to deal with water biodiversity, if we are to deal with climate crisis. And at some point, I really hope that the resistance to change and the push from agricultural lobby that is just interested in maintaining the broken system and the status quo, you really realize that long-term perspective, we're all going to lose. And if you really care about long-term future of the farming and farmers, and it really is about changing the current policy and changing the current broken system.
Thank you for remaining hopeful and engaged in EU water governance. I must say I was struck that it's such different responsibilities. You seem to have a common discourse and common purpose. So thank you again. And sorry that we don't have time for more questions, but at the coffee break, we're going to take 20 minutes and reunite at 11:30. So please, you can also chat over there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karin.